As you all know by now, Janine here. She, her, and her pronouns. Um, we are officially halfway through the mindfulness series, which is nuts to me. That came up really quickly. I hope you're getting at least something out of it, that you found something helpful. I'm curious if anyone has been able to incorporate anything in their daily lives. And you don't have to share if you don't want to, or if you want to privately chat me and just let me know, yeah, I'm doing it and it's going well, or it's not going well, or I have a hard time finding time. Anything is absolutely legitimate. But just curious to know if anybody has been able to incorporate any daily practices. So feel free to do that at any point. Let me know that. What I thought we might work on today is the idea of equanimity. Does anybody know what equanimity might mean? Kind of in terms of mindfulness? I hear crickets. It's a big word, absolutely. Essentially, equanimity is the ability to maintain your calm or maintain your inner peace, regardless of what's going on in the world around you.
I can only do that with horses.
Right? With horses. Yeah, it's not an easy skill at all. So whether the environment is noisy and chaotic, or you're going through a frustrating experience, or any variations on that, whether there's a global pandemic, just throwing that example out there, massive social unrest, again, just an example. The ability to stay calm, to maintain your inner peace and not react with frustration or anger or hatred. Keeping your balance is the essence of equanimity. And it's something that mindfulness practitioners are often cultivating in terms of their practice, being able to find that inner equilibrium that can't be dashed around, right, by emotions or external events to much extent. I often picture like a really solid, sturdy tree. The wind will whip the branches around a little bit, but that base, that trunk, stays really solidly grounded and firm and is pretty immovable, barring logging equipment, I guess. But that kind of a visualization can really help with that idea of equanimity. The elements swirl all around us, but that core center, that solid trunk, stays really strong and tall and balanced. So now that we've talked a little bit about the idea of equanimity, maybe just take a moment to see if you can identify somebody that you think has it or embodies it. It could be somebody that you know in your own life who just always seems super balanced, super even keeled, unflappable, sometimes we say. Or it could be a fictional character from a book or a movie. It could be a historical figure that you admire, but just take a moment and see if you can identify somebody who's able to keep a level head, maintain calm under pressure. Anybody got anything they want to share? Anybody you think has that real solid demeanor?
I'd say my dad,
Yeah.
because I learned to kind of compose myself and kind of always keep a level head in like stressful situations. I kind of learned all that from him.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's a wonderful quality for a parent to have, I think. Yeah. Anybody else have somebody in mind?
I had a chemistry professor at
Mhm.
my last community college. He's a great guy. He's kind of like a dad figure, even though he didn't have any kids. And no matter what happened in the lab, even when I started filter paper on fire on accidentally, he was completely calm. So I think that's a good example.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, those are two fantastic examples. Did anyone come up with like a public figure or fictional character, movie actor, anything like that? Or are they mostly personal connections? It's awesome. I love the fact that we have folks like that in our real lives, right? When I think of equanimity, definitely people in my own personal life, teachers. Yeah, I've definitely had some teachers and professors that seem to embody that really well. I also think of, do you all know who John Lewis was? He's a congressman. He participated in the lunch counter sit-ins during the 60s at the Woolworths to end segregation. He was at Selma and marched with Dr. King. And then he went on to have a really long, illustrious political career. And he actually, just as an aside, wrote amazing graphic novels about his time in the civil rights movement called March. There's 3 of them. He's somebody that I really think of in terms of embodying equanimity. You saw him on the Senate floor, or the floor of the House of the Representatives. And you could tell he was impassioned about something, but he always seemed to really maintain that steadiness in the face of whatever it was. And seeing footage of him marching across the bridge at Selma during the 60s, during the civil rights movement, being met with folks with guns, people spitting on them, throwing things, just keeping that perfect calm, that perfect like nonviolence, absolutely, while still remaining really strong and steady in his convictions. Equanimity, right? So whoever you have, thinking of this person can be a really good way to conjure up that feeling of equanimity, that feeling of inner balance. It can help inspire us to practice because maybe that's what we're going for, right? And it kind of helps to have an idea in my mind like, oh, I'd like to embody that characteristic just like my dad or my chemistry professor or a public figure that I admire. So on a technical level, just to give you kind of the mindfulness-based stress reduction definition of equanimity, it's not reacting to anything with craving or aversion, simply observing what's going on, which is something we've already been working on through our mindfulness work. Just noticing non-judgmentally, non-analytically, right? So to practice equanimity, there's actually 2 ways. One is just naturally calling up this quality, calling up this non-reactive way of just observing what's going on without reacting with either craving or aversion. The other way is using a short phrase, similar to how we studied our attention with the breath as we've been practicing. If you were with us on Tuesday, we practiced labeling the breath, saying things like rising, falling, or in breath, out breath to help focus us through our mindful breathing. You can do the same thing with equanimity, cultivating an acceptance of the present moment just as it is, without reacting to it, right? Without craving or aversion. And if you can say this in your mind with a calm voice, then you can actually start to cultivate a little bit of that feeling of equanimity. A phrase that might help cultivate this balance could be, right now, it's like this. Or, this is how it is right now. Which sounds so simple and obvious, but it's so amazing how little we actually acknowledge that to ourselves. This is how it is right now, right? I had this experience this weekend. We were camping outside of Lander and the mosquitoes were just insane. And I was driven I felt completely out of balance by them, right? Suddenly an activity that I'd really been looking forward to was just the most annoying. I was so annoyed. But taking a moment just to say, this is how it is right now. It's almost kind of liberating, right? Instead of wishing things were different. This is how it is right in this moment. You can also do it with pain in the body. It's something that they use with chronic pain patients. Not saying that pain is something that we want to necessarily be okay with, but just acknowledging that this is how it is right now. And this is my current reality can be actually really effective in pain management. Does anyone have questions about the idea of equanimity, kind of the feeling we're going for, the quality that represents? Questions about why we would be talking about it? Is it useful? Good.
I suppose it would be being able to bring yourself to return to that place of balance in high stress situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we can see lots of benefits to having that inner calm. If you think about folks like, I don't know, ER doctors, right? Or first responders of any kind. Maybe that's another good example of when you want to think about cultivating equanimity. When the storm is just swirling, being that steady point, being that eye of the hurricane, right? Where things are still and calm. Thanks, Jenna. So in our guided practice today, we'll work on practicing this just a little bit. So to begin, our meditation part of our time together, go ahead and find your tall, comfortable seat, whatever that looks like for you today. Maybe you're on the floor, in a chair, leaning up against a wall, wherever you are, sitting up tall, feeling your sits bones really grounding down, letting gravity really hold you close to the surface underneath you while your spine lengthens and the crown of your head gently floats up towards the sky. So almost imagining we can create a little bit of space between each vertebrae here as we are sitting up tall, finding that nice balance between alertness and softness. You can allow your eyes to close down if that's comfortable. Otherwise, just softening the gaze, maybe 2 or 3 feet out in front of you, letting the eyes gently relax their focus. Really inviting the outside world to become soft and turning inward. We'll begin by taking a couple deep breaths together, breathing in through the nose, filling up the lungs, the belly, and reversing that process to exhale all the air out. Inhaling deeply once more. And exhaling slowly, letting it all go. Giving ourselves permission to just be here now. Sorry, I need to turn my sound off here. Returning to your breath's natural rhythm, its natural pace. Practicing our mindful breathing for just a moment. Maybe finding the spot in your body where you feel the breath the most. Maybe it's the air moving in through the nose. Maybe it feels cool as it enters, warm as it leaves. Maybe the point you feel it is in your chest or your heart space, rising and falling with your inhales and your exhales. Or maybe it's the expansion and contraction of the belly. But wherever you're feeling your breath today, just go ahead and focus on that for just a moment. Just noticing the raw texture of the breath. Noticing if you feel open, like you're able to get plenty of air, or if things feel constricted or tight. Just checking in to see how you're showing up today. To cultivate equanimity, we can just set the intention to practice acceptance of whatever arises in this meditation, and to not react to anything with hatred or judgment or craving. Just allowing things to be as they are. Just setting this intention for our meditation session. To not react, but just to observe and pay attention. Keeping your inner peace and your inner balance. If you notice that your mind is getting lost in thought, just acknowledge it. Just letting it be. And then patiently bringing your attention back to the breath in the body. Feeling the rise and the fall. As you notice the mind beginning to wander, maybe practice saying the phrase, "Right now it's like this." Then maybe you notice what right now is truly like. Right now, I'm sitting like this. Right now, I'm breathing like this. If you can hear any ambient noises, any sounds of the outside world, others in your household, you can try, right now I'm hearing this. works well if you're noticing a distracted mind or a wandering mind, just noticing it. Right now, my mind is wandering like this. Feeling the breath in the body, allowing the breath to be as it is. Right now, the breath is like this. Notice how you're relating to your experience right now. Are you judging it in any way? Having any reactions to what's happening right now in this moment? Just notice. And then maybe again set the intention to practice equanimity. Setting the intention to just accept things as they are. Maybe asking ourselves, whatever arises, can I just notice it? Practice for a couple more minutes. Continuing to return to the breath when the mind wanders. And to acknowledge right now it's like this. Once more, if the mind has wandered, return to your breathing. We'll end by taking a big, deep breath together, exhaling all the air out to prepare. Inhaling in through the nose, the lungs, the belly, holding for just a tick before reversing that process, emptying the belly, the lungs. When you're ready, you can begin to wiggle fingers and toes. You gently flutter the eyes open. A nice bridge as you're coming out of meditation is to just once more notice how it is right now. Maybe taking in sights, sounds, smells of your environment. Noticing any stiffness in the body, any calls that you might have to roll the shoulders, stretch the neck, stretch out the legs. Great work practicing equanimity. Any reactions? Any thoughts about the practice? Did it feel easy? Did it feel challenging, frustrating, calming? And if you'd rather not unmute, you're welcome to use the chat. I did have someone share privately that this has been a rough week. I absolutely agree. Although I don't know your personal experience, I know that just in general, it's been a rough week on a lot of us. Maybe see what you think about practicing this feeling of equanimity over the next week. Maybe just taking a moment during your day to call to mind that person and just embody that for a moment. Or maybe say, okay, I'm going to take 5 breaths and be really present with them. Or maybe setting a timer to try to practice your mindful breathing and your acknowledgement of balance. That you're right now, it's like this is. And this is I don't get any kickback from this, but there are lots of meditation apps out there that can be helpful sometimes. My favorite is Insight Timer. It's INSIGHT Timer. It's free. It has lots and lots of guided meditations, but it has a beautiful timer function. And you can set it to have, different meditation bells and things. So if an app is something that you find helpful and worthwhile, I recommend that one, absolutely. And I think I wanted to leave you with something today. I don't know if any of you, when you were kids, saw the movie Kung Fu Panda. Is that ringing a bell for anyone? Brendan's nodding. He's the only one I can see, so I'm going to assume he speaks for all of you. Our family was rewatching that the other night, and I'd forgotten how in tune that kids movie is with mindfulness. The message is so clear, right? They're really explaining it in a way that works well for young people and for my age. Like, I was like, wow, I forgot like how insightful this movie was. But one of the lines in it is, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift, which is why they call it the present. And I just loved that. And I thought, I'm going to tell my people about that when I see them on Thursday. So if you haven't watched that in a long time, it's worth a rewatch, especially as we're moving through some mindfulness pieces. All right, well, if we don't have any other questions or comments, I really appreciate you showing up and practicing with me tonight. Please continue to stay safe and take care of yourselves. And let me know how your equanimity practice goes. Please feel free to reach out via email or phone if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, anything you would like to cover during the second half of our time together. And I will see you next week. Take care, everybody.